and now I'm trying to redirect that energy to make into me. How do you do that? It's really hard. And I'll tell you how. You don't. It's really hard. It's really hard to redirect the energy when you're already thinking about the fact that you put your heart and soul into a relationship that somebody just literally went, do you know what? I'm out. See you later. How are you supposed to focus on yourself when your emotions don't follow logic? That's logical. Focusing on yourself is the logical part. The heart, that's where it's hurting. That's where it's live. And when someone says focus on yourself and you're thinking, I don't want to focus on myself because I actually don't like me at the moment and I don't really know how to deal with that, it's a really tough place to be in. Hello guys, and welcome back to another episode of Coming Up for Air with myself, Lou. I have probably changed the camera angles. We're going to be, I don't know, what's it called? Trial and error. We're trialing and erroring for probably the next couple of weeks to see what I actually like, to see what cuts I like, to see what edits I like, to see where I'm sitting. And I was speaking to my mum and dad, and my dad was like, because I value their opinion, my dad was like, I love how relaxed you look and I love how it looks all relaxed and you've got some like really nice prints in the background. And I was like, yes, love. And then I looked at it and I was like, am I too far away? Is there too much in the shot? So it is going to be trial and error for the next couple of weeks. My lighting still isn't here. I'm relying on my trusty ring light and the natural light that is coming through my window now, although there is a big black cloud that I can see on the horizon. I wanted to go out for a walk this evening because I'm not feeling too energetic at the moment. I'm a bit hormonal, so I'm going to go for a walk this evening and hopefully make myself feel better. Anyway, welcome back to another episode of Coming Up for Air with myself, Lou. You may have seen that there is now a video episode uploaded on Spotify as well. That was a mistake. That's not going to continue. We are not continuing with that. I didn't mean to upload it in video format. And I've had quite a few messages like, Lou, are you aware that you've uploaded this in video format? And I'm like, yeah, no, I was not aware. So that's going to change. But I am very grateful for everybody that has sat and watched me on YouTube. Like I said, there's lots of things coming over there this year. I've just got to get a little bit more proactive with putting makeup on. That sounds so ridiculous, but I've got to become a little bit more proactive with actually making myself look a little bit more presentable to show up online. Because I obviously have my running account and I show up running with no makeup on and all the rest of it. And I'm quite confident with no makeup on. But I think when you're sat and you're recording a podcast and stuff, you want to look nice, you want to feel nice, and I always feel better when I know that I look better. So yeah, I think it's just a case of, I went to record some content over the weekend and it was literally just a case of like, oh my God, I cannot be bothered to put a full face of makeup on and do my hair. So I try and cram it all into like 2 days. So I'm trying to find my feet within this new sort of routine that I'm building, and we'll get there. It will be fine. So I usually start these episodes off with a good old catch-ups, and I have sort of been going on recently, and I have been talking more about this over on my Patreon. I've been going on a little bit of an alcohol journey, and I absolutely love the taste of alcohol. I love wine. I love Prosecco. I hate spirits. I love Aperol Spritz. I had my first Aperol Spritz of the year. I had 2 at the weekend. And at the start of the year, I said I was going to be limiting myself to 2 drinks when I'm out locally. I've not delved into this on my main episodes that I'm putting out there. I've dived right into it on my Patreon. So if you're interested as to why I'm doing this, then head over to my Patreon. Like I always say to people, it is £5 a month. You can sign up. I have hundreds and hundreds of different episodes over there. I get very personal, into very personal things over there, and I talk a lot more about a lot more emotional subjects and emotional topics. And the reason why I have a subscription over there is because I know the people over there have gone over there for a reason. I did an episode about engagements and taking your engagement rings off recently. I've done a finances episode about how I got back on my feet after I lost my job. I've done a alcohol episode over there, like I said, diving into everything alcohol. And I think it is kind of stemmed from the fact that no, I didn't rely on alcohol when I went through my breakup. That is not what this whole thing's about. I am completely in control of my drinking. However, my proactiveness when I am hungover is nil. I do not know how I used to get up. In fact, no, I actually do know how I used to get up and do a full 12-hour shift in a hotel. It's because I was 10 years younger, about probably like 15 years younger. I fear, and I hate this because I don't like hearing people saying, oh, you're too old. I hate that. Oh, I'm just getting old now. I hate all of that stuff. I'm not too old. I'm just older and my tolerance has decreased. I'm also training a lot more, and I think I'd forgotten, because I didn't run a marathon last year. I still did half the training. I'd forgotten what it's like to incorporate long runs into your routine, and I've been running long once a week. My mileage is quite a lot higher than it used to be. And so I think I'd just kind of forgotten how much, training, drinking, thinking of new content ideas, having to record content, not wanting to show up online hungover. It is funny when you are a 365 party girl. I'm constantly out. I'm constantly socializing. It's quite hard to do everything at once, and I have wanted to plow so much effort into my content this year that something had to give. Something had to take a knock in order for me to be able to do 14 million things in one time, in one day. And I'm very busy in the week, and I rarely give myself weekends off. So I've been trying to go out at the weekends and record content on a Saturday and Sunday and edit and get up on a Monday, then train. And it's all kind of like, and it all kind of made more sense when I did Dry January this year. I have never in my life worked this hard at something, ever. I was telling my friend the other day, the last time I worked this hard was when I was doing my law degree. I want this whole community I'm creating, the whole presence I have online, I want it to take off. I want it to be a thing. And so I'm just going to move my mic down. I've realised that it was covering my face. So it's really quite hard to do everything, be a 365 party girl, and actually sleep, recover, look after my body, and do everything that I want to achieve this year. I have some insane goals that I want to reach, and in order to do that, I need to be coherent. So I have realised that pretty much once a month I leave the postcode. So I'm giving myself one sort of time a month to be able to go out, drink as much rosé, Aperol and Pinot as I possibly can, and be hungover so I can actually still enjoy my 365 party girl lifestyle. The other times when I'm out socialising, because my friends are so local, I drink locally and I go out locally. Because of that, I have decided that I'm just having 2 drinks in the postcode. And so far, I have not been questioned. And it's funny because the least amount of noise you make about it, the better, because people don't pick up on it. Hopefully my friends aren't listening to this and they're now not going to go, oh my God, I heard on your podcast. But they've not made much of a song and dance about it. And I've been able to have 2 drinks, stay out for as long as I want, and then be able to go home. And I think driving my car is helping because I'm like, oh, and I also do this little thing that after obviously a certain time, you can park on double yellows in the evening. So I will always make sure that when I park somewhere, I park on double yellows, because I then have to move my car, because in the morning, I don't want to get a ticket. So I can't physically leave my car there. I can't drive it when I've had too much to drink. So the only thing I'm left to do is to have 2 drinks and to drive home. And it seems to be working. So I went out with all my friends at the weekend. I had 2 Aperol spritzes, and then I came home and I woke up in the morning and I got so much editing done. I was really, really happy, and it seems to be working. And if you've listened to my podcast for a while, you'll know that my summers are wild. I am away in 2 weeks. I then fly home for 2 weeks. I'm then away for 2 weeks. And then I fly home for a week. Then I'm away for a week. Then I fly home for the weekend. Then I'm away again. And that's how I wanted my summer to be. And it's not even summer yet. So my summers are wild, and who knows if I'll keep this up. Who knows where I'm going to be in 2 months' time with the output that I want to put out and my goals and everything like that. So if you are thinking, oh my God, Lou, how can I be more proactive? What changes can I make? And if there is anything that I really, really, really don't like, it's drinking snobbery. And sometimes it annoys me when people are like, oh, are you still drinking? And like I said at the start of this episode, I'm completely in control of my drinking. It's just the knock-on effect that it has on my body the next day makes me really unproductive. And I feel like in this generation, and I feel like in this time at the moment, you physically cannot win, because if you don't drink and you go out, people question why you're not drinking. And if you do drink, there's always going to be somebody that's going to pass comment and say like, she still goes out and does X, Y, and Z, or she's still out drinking, or she still goes out on a Friday and gets drunk and stuff. It's so annoying. People's opinions just should not matter on this sort of stuff. But obviously people pass comment and you feel like you have to defend yourself a little bit. But that is the reason I delve all into it in my Patreon episode that I've done on alcohol, which has had a immense amount of comments where people have said that it has made them take a step back and think about why they are drinking, what they are using drinking for, and if they're actually enjoying drinking. Like I said, I enjoy drinking. I enjoy the taste of alcohol. So, I will choose a glass of wine sometimes over any other soft drink, because I would much rather sit with a glass of wine and enjoy that than have a lemonade. She says, actually drinking lemonade. I was drinking lemonade at the weekend. The episode obviously goes on to me saying about how to be productive, and I get a lot of questions and a lot of messages about how did I start, how do I stay consistent, how do I stay motivated. And I think my motivation had kind of dropped off a little bit. I got a bit lazy with my content around Christmas time, but that's just because I was out so much. So yeah, it's a really good episode to have, but I had a nice weekend still out with my friends. I was still able to enjoy myself and get a lot of work done. And I think at the moment, there's not a lot going on. I mean, that's a lie. There is so much going on. But in terms of like my plans and stuff, everything is kind of all being worked towards in the background. And like I said, I'm here, there and everywhere in the next month. In the next couple of months. So yeah, I know that I probably don't plug my Patreon enough. I don't know why I don't, to be fair, because some of the episodes over there are like episodes that I am like really proud of doing and really proud of like speaking out on certain things. So yes, if you do want to go over to my Patreon, like I said, it's £5 a month. You can sign up through the link in my bio, or you can just drop me a DM or drop me a message and say, Lou, can't find your Patreon links. It's in the description of every single episode I do, whether you listen on Spotify, Apple Music, or you're watching on YouTube. You will find the links to my Patreon in the description below. Anyway, so I've been reviewing content at the moment, and I've been kind of trying to swap my content up a little bit, and the Instagram algorithm has changed. Sorry, I've just jumped out my skin. It's very, very windy here today, and my letterbox has just opened and slammed shut, and it made me jump out my skin. So I've been trying to learn this new Instagram algorithm, and lots of things have changed. So I'm trying to catch up with it and sort of produce content that I know is going to be engaging and useful. And I remember my mum, when I started this podcast, she was like, when you run out of things to do and to say, what are you going to talk about? And I was like, Mum, I'm never going to run out of things to do or say. I'm not. It's not a thing. I know that's never going to happen. And she was laughing. And I was telling her the other day about the kind of angle that I want to take more of my content towards, but also have my breakup content as well. But I can kind of now speak to you from less of an emotive side of things with a breakup, because I feel like I have got over the big fat mountain of my breakup. And I do feel like I am on the other side as such. So today I wanted to focus on some advice that is so readily available to get online, but is the advice that also did my absolute head in. And I've done an episode like this before, I know I have, and my views around no contact are quite, not controversial, but they're just not your typical, go 30 days no contact and you'll feel great, because I did 30 good days no contact, broke it around 70 odd times, and ended up doing no contact for about 7 months and never really seeing the end of 30 days. And that was really tough for me, and I have had quite a lot of backlash around my views of no contact, and other creators saying to me, like, it does work if it's done properly. Well, who made the rules of no contact, and how do you do it properly? Because all I know is that I used to get to 3 days in and break it, and then feel like I had to, because there were so many rules, I had to go back to the start. And that's not how I ended up approaching it at all. I ended up approaching no contact in a completely different way. I've got a 30-day no contact guide to guide you through 30 days of getting used to not contacting your ex. It's no rules. There's no rules. I don't say you need to start from the start. It's actually 30 days of mindset tips and practical advice that you can actually do to help you with no contact. It's not put your phone in the freezer, don't contact your ex, and then berate yourself when you do contact your ex. It's not like that at all. So that's another thing that I think I just don't talk about enough. I have got a no contact guide that people message me all the time and say, like, this is the most genuine, relatable 30-day no contact guide that I have looked at. And I will be completely open and honest with you, and I have been completely open and honest with you. I bought a How to Get Your Ex Back kit, and I think it was about 60 quid. And I was so desperate to get my ex back that I would have done anything. And I always say to people, if you're unsure about anything of mine, I usually have an episode of a podcast that's free to listen to before you get into anything. So my opinions on no contact were very not the norm. My opinion on just a breakup is my whole backing behind everything that I do. It isn't just a breakup, and I refuse to hear people say it. That sentence alone is enough to make me want to literally explode. I hate it. It isn't just a breakup. Oh, well, it's just a breakup. Drives me insane. So my opinions on that are, quite strong. And I love talking about stuff like this. But today I wanted to focus on a bit of advice that is so easy to give. And I actually give this advice a lot, but I think it's good to be able to challenge your own advice, because it makes people realize that you aren't tone deaf to certain things. I always caveat things saying, I haven't got children. I know no contact's really hard with children. I wasn't married. I haven't had to go through a divorce. So I always caveat my content with that. But what I wanted to do here was do a focus on yourself piece of advice and why it is so hard to focus on yourself. And furthermore, focusing on yourself when you didn't actually want the breakup to happen in the first place is doubly as hard. And so I have listed out 20 things why focusing on yourself after a breakup that you didn't want to happen is actually really hard. So hopefully you'll be able to listen to this and not feel like you should be solely focusing on yourself, and you to realize that it isn't actually as easy as it sounds. Yes, I give it out. Yes, I say you need to focus inward. You need to focus on yourself. Of course you do, because you're going through a really tough time. But I also think that it's really annoying when you are going through a breakup and you're thinking, I actually don't know how to focus on myself because I've never had to focus on myself. And I was kind of in that boat. And so this episode has kind of come from that side of my breakup, and the fact that I'd never gone through a breakup before and everyone around me was telling me to focus on myself. And I was trying to say to them, well, how do I do that when I've never had to do that in my entire life? I was in a relationship when I was 14 and my parents looked after me and I didn't have to focus on myself at all. And then I was catapulted into this life where I was an adult, and then all of a sudden everyone around me was telling me, oh, you know, you're single, but you also just need to focus on yourself. And you're thinking, I've spent half my life, like 50% of my time, making sure that somebody else is okay, because that's what you do when you're in a relationship. It's 50-50. You know, you make sure that your partner's okay and they make sure that you're okay. That's just how relationships work. So then when your life is flipped on its head and it's like, oh, by the way, you should be focusing on yourself, you're thinking, how do I do that? And it can be really frustrating. So hopefully this episode is going to soothe your thoughts of what you have on when people tell you to focus on yourself. So without further ado, guys, let's get into it. So the first reason why focusing on yourself is a really hard piece of advice to take is because your brain is wired to fix a problem. You're trying to fix something that another person has made a decision about. And I found this really hard because had I had kind of thought about this in more detail when I was going through my breakup, I would have realized that there wasn't a fat lot that I could actually do. And coupled with the fact that I'm a slight control freak in the way that I like to know the outcome of everything. I like to know that the outcome of something is going to be positive. And so I catch myself even now still saying, yeah, but what happens if that doesn't happen? And I think as a human being, your brain is wired to try and fix something, or make repairs. And when you go through a breakup where someone leaves you and says, I'm leaving you, that doesn't really give you a lot of anything to play with to try and repair, because the decision wasn't yours. So that decision to leave can't really be repaired by you. And so when you're trying to focus on yourself, your mind is trying to fix something else, and that something else has already been made, and that something else is already over. And so you're stuck in people saying to you, oh my God, you just need to focus on yourself. And you're like, hold on a second. No, I'm just focusing on trying to fix this, and then getting frustrated because you can't fix it because it isn't that's broken. It's actually over and somebody's actually left you. And sometimes when I say stuff like that, I feel like I'm being really brutal because I'm like, they have left you. But like sometimes you can't sugarcoat these things. And what I'm trying to say is your brain is too fixated on fixing something that when somebody says, just focus on yourself, you're like, are you kidding? Like I could focus on myself. I'm trying to fix my relationship. When actually, if you were to peel those layers back, and like I said, as brutal as it sounds, your brain is actually thinking that you can still repair something. And I spent so much time trying to do stuff that I thought would bring my ex back to me. And it wasn't a case of him like coming back. I hadn't made peace with the idea that he had actually made the decision that he was leaving. I don't think he ever really had the intention of coming back. And if you listen to my Patreon, you obviously know that in April, I remember having the conversation with him. I even remember, like, honestly, the fact that I have a wall art picture up saying gut feelings are guardian angels, that is just so true for me. My gut screams at me all the time. And I sometimes just know things without having to be told things. And I just knew I'm sat crying, straightening my hair. And I just knew he was coming around to tell me it was over. And I'd flattened all of the bottom of the garden. These are things that like people have no idea about. But we had like a bit where at the bottom of the garden where we were going to build a shed for all of my ex's bikes and jet skis and all the rest of it. And I'd spent hours flattening it because I was like, I don't even know why I did it. I was like, right, I'm just going to flatten where the base of the shed's going, because that's something that was stressing him out, and I know that he wanted to do that, so maybe that was impacting how he was feeling about the relationship. So I'm just going to spend like 2 days flattening where the shed needs to go, and he'll come back and he'll feel so much less stress because he'll be like, oh, do you know what? I can see that now. Like, that's one thing off the list, and I can actually focus on getting me and Lou back on track. In what world? Like, when I look back, and I videoed myself doing it, when I look back, I just want to give that girl a hug because I just think, oh my God, I searched high and low for answers and something that I could do to fix our relationship, and I wasn't the one that needed fixing, and I didn't need to fix anything, and the decision was made, and it's really, really, really tough. And this moves me on perfectly to the second point, to my second frustration, is that acceptance that it's over is actually really, really hard. And so focusing on yourself when you have gone through this huge breakup feels like acceptance. It feels like you are giving up on this relationship. And I said on countless occasions to my ex, are you really giving up 14 years? Is what has gone on and what you've done that horrendous that we aren't going to be able to get through it? We've got through 14 years. The focus on yourself advice makes you think like, because you're not focusing on the breakup and you're not focusing on trying to get your ex back, you're accepting that you're okay with something, and it's going to make your ex think that you're okay about it, and then he's going to forget about you or she's going to forget about you. It's not the case, but it makes that piece of advice 10 times harder to take. Another reason why it's really hard to take is because your identity is tied into them. You are so-and-so's girlfriend or so-and-so's boyfriend. You are yourself first. But I've even caught myself the other day telling someone a story, and I was like, oh my God, I was the funny girlfriend. And I tell this story all the time. And I was okay with being the funny girlfriend, and I'm offended when people don't find me funny. My sense of humour, I'm very dry, and I don't take myself very seriously at all, really. So I do like being the funny one in the room, and I used to like it actually when people used to say to him, God, your girlfriend's so funny. And I used to get, you are so funny, he is so fit. And I'm like, God's sake. I was okay with it. But I was still so-and-so's girlfriend. And even now, I will get certain people introduce me as so-and-so's ex. And it does my head in. Do you know why? Because my ex isn't local anymore, and I know he doesn't get that. He doesn't get that, oh, you're the ex of the girl with the podcast. Honestly, well, he might do, but it's so annoying, and my friends will correct them. I've got a really good guy best friend, and he went, and he actually turned around to someone and went, her name's Liz. And this guy was like, yeah, sorry, it's just like me. And he was like, no, it's Liz, not so-and-so's ex. And it's so funny because your identity is wrapped up in them, and it's like, okay, so I'm focusing on myself, but like I said at the start of this, how do I focus on myself when I've been focusing on somebody else for half of my life? It's really, really tough. And you don't recognize how you're supposed to focus on yourself because you don't recognize how your day's supposed to look, because your days have never, ever looked like this. You've never done this in your whole life, or you may have done this, but you might have not been through such a horrible breakup. I'd never been through a breakup in my life. I didn't know how to focus on myself. So that piece of advice was awful. Because I was like, okay, focus on yourself. How? You tell me how I'm supposed to be focusing on myself. And my mind, for the last 14 years of my life, has been focused on somebody else. It's so hard. And people think when they say just focus on yourself, it's really easy. But what they don't realize is that internally, your mind is on a constant loop. It's constantly playing the same scenario, looking for a different outcome. You are trying to look, and your brain is trying to find a different outcome to that situation because you don't want this to happen. So people saying focus on yourself, and you're thinking, I've got a million and one thoughts flying through my mind, literally flying through my brain currently right now. The last one, the last thought, the last thing I want to do is focus on myself right now. That is the complete last thing, because I can't get these thought loops that are going on in my brain 1,000 times a day out my head. And the worst thing you can do is think there must have been a different outcome. There have got to be a different outcome. If I just do this, they will change their mind. How are you focusing on yourself if you are still on 1,000 loops in your head? How are you focusing on yourself if you're still bringing them into the thought pattern? It's not easy. These things are not easy. Focusing on yourself is not easy. And I had this interesting conversation with someone the other day, and they said, how did you move forward with your life when there is always going to have been a what if he comes back? And I was like, honestly, I don't think I ever thought, what if he came back? Because I think I fantasized about it in a way that it was like, what if he never did what he did to me and my family? What if he then came back? I think the way that he went around things and the things that came out after we broke up, I don't think I ever thought, what if he came back? Because I always knew that outcome would be, what if he came back? It would never work, because I don't think my family would ever be able to forgive him, and I don't think I would either. I don't really talk about forgiveness a lot because I don't actually really think I know how I feel about it in terms of like, do I forgive him? I'm not sure. But when you are thinking if there is a possibility, like I sometimes thought, oh my God, if all of that stuff hadn't happened and we'd just gone through a breakup where he left because he genuinely just was like really struggling and then he came back, what would I have thought? How are you supposed to focus on yourself when your thoughts are, what happens if they come back? And there's a small voice in your head still saying it. So you've got all your friends saying focus on yourself, and all the expert advice online is saying focus on yourself, but you're thinking, hold on a second, I don't want to focus on myself, because what happens if they come back? What happens if they walk back into my life? Then what? And again, you know, this advice is really difficult to take when you're stuck in a thought process and a thought loop and a thought pattern that involves your ex. How are you supposed to focus on yourself? You're not. You can't. It's really hard. Like I said to someone else the other day in a DM that they sent me, you are grieving somebody that is alive. And when I talk about this, I've struggled to talk about this because it involves my dad, but I'll never ever forget my dad sitting with me at Christmas and saying, I feel like I'm grieving a son that is dead but still alive. And it was like someone had stabbed a hot iron in my mouth. I was like speechless. I couldn't breathe because I was like, oh my God, I knew I felt like that, but I didn't know that my dad felt like that. And the fact that my dad felt like that has absolutely crucified me. When someone passes away and when someone goes through grief on like, you know, death in their family and stuff, the last thing you say to them is focus on yourself. Just focus on yourself. That is the last thing that you say to somebody. And when you go through a breakup and when someone abandons you, you are grieving somebody that is still alive and that you can pick up the phone to. So it's not great advice when you are in that situation, because it's actually really, really difficult. There is zero way I can describe that pain that I felt when my dad said that. And I just don't think you ever really get closure from that. I think you have to make your own closure, especially when they don't come back and apologize. It's horrible. It's a horrible situation to have to go through. And I don't think a lot of people really know how much damage that does to somebody when, like I said, it would have just been so easy for my dad to pick up the phone and say, hey, like, what the hell is going on? And he physically couldn't. He was so hurt, he actually couldn't do that. And again, you know, people are saying to me, focus on yourself. And I've got my dad telling me that he feels like he's grieving a son that is still alive. It's really, really difficult, a really, really hard situation. And I send so much love to everybody having to watch their family go through their breakup with them and grieve in their own ways. I don't think anybody really ever prepares you for the amount of pain that is brought into your life by seeing how much pain your family are in because of the actions of somebody you brought into their life. It's horrible and it's really difficult, and that's where like the focus on yourself advice kind of just falls on deaf ears when you're going through a situation like that, because nothing makes that situation better. Nothing will make you feel better. Absolutely nothing. You have to ride that grief out. And I think it's heightened, that grief is heightened when your routine reminds you of them. Focus on yourself and you're like, okay, but I get up in the morning and I don't have anyone to make breakfast for. I don't know who to make lunches for. My friend said to me the other day, well, how do you work out at home all the time? And I'm like, babe, you forgot. I was once a housewife. I was once a happy housewife. I have to disclaim that. I was a happy housewife. I wasn't trapped at home. I liked being at home. But in the morning, I used to love getting up, making breakfast, making his lunch. I didn't have time to go to the gym, so I used to work out whilst his lunch was cooking. So I'd work out in the kitchen and then I'd put my stuff away, do half an hour Pilates class, and then in the evening I would finish work or come back from wherever I was, whatever I was doing that day, know what time he'd be home, and then think, oh, I haven't really got time to go to the gym, so I'll just work out at home. I work out at home because of my routine. I still work out at home now. I obviously run in the gym, but I still work out at home. And when people are saying to you, focus on yourself, and you're thinking, my routine stems around another person. My routine completely fitted around my ex. That is not because my ex made it. It's not because he was horrible. It's not because I was like trapped in this house. It's because that's how we lived. And I enjoyed living like that. I liked living like that. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. But when he left, I was like, now what? Number one, I'm not even cooking dinner. I'm batch cooking plain pasta, putting it in the fridge and sprinkling cheese on it every night. That is all I'm doing. I'm not even cooking dinner anymore. Like, I'm not cooking dinner. I'm not making breakfast for myself. I work at home, so I don't need to make myself lunch. It's so hard. And people are saying, oh my God, you should be focusing on yourself. You should be eating. And you're like, I cooked for 2 people. All the time. All the time. That's all I ever know. I cooked for 2 people. I remember making my first roast dinner and thinking, right, I've got enough to feed about 7 million people here. It's hard. Focus on yourself whilst you're trying to make a complete new routine for yourself is really, really hard. And this becomes like part of a wider point that I always make, that focusing on yourself is really hard when you were a team and when you were a unit. And like, it took me a long time to get used to not waking up to a morning text. I used to get a morning text every single morning without fail. Morning, babe. Hope you have a nice day. Thank you for my lunch today, blah, 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 blah. And then I'd be like, oh, I've got my morning text and carry on with my day. I used to ring him at the end of the day and be like, what time are you home? Are you going to the gym tonight? Like, what do you fancy for your dinner? Should I nip out and get something? Are you going to bring something in? Shall we have a few drinks tonight? Blah, 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 blah. I got to the weekends, and I'm going to speak more about the weekends because I've got a lot of messages recently about getting through the weekends as a single person when you were in a relationship for a long time. A lot of people ask me how I did that. But a Friday night, I used to really look forward to Friday nights. I was talking about on my Patreon the other day that we used to have bath catch-ups, and we would like have a bath, or he would sit next to the bath with me. We'd have a glass of Prosecco and we'd catch up in that time about what we'd done that week. And that was kind of like our debrief, and that went. It just stopped. It was something that I looked forward to every single week, and it never happened again. The last time that we had a bath catch-up was the last time we had a bath catch-up. It never happened again. And self-focus feels so unnatural when you have been so focused on us for such a long time. And so if you're struggling, then I completely understand, and I get it, and I understand why, because it isn't as easy as people make out. And what I'm trying to get to with this episode is to show you that that is empty advice. It is completely empty advice, because you will be going through all of this when people are saying that, and you shouldn't be getting frustrated as to why you can't be focusing on yourself, because you have all of this going on in the background. This is what I'm trying to get to, and for you to grasp during this episode, that you should not be getting frustrated with yourself if you are finding focusing on yourself really difficult. Of course you are. Of course you're finding this hard. And within that feeling of like us, then comes the feeling of reject. And after that feeling of like, oh, okay, we're not us anymore, then you're reminded of the feeling of reject. And you were never rejected. I do a lot of work on this. I do a lot of episodes on like rejection and stuff. You were not rejected. This is not you being rejected. But that doesn't mean that you don't feel rejected. That feeling of reject is massive. And when someone's telling you should be focusing on yourself, your self-worth is taking a massive battering because you're like, well, I've been rejected. There's something wrong with me. I went to literal war with myself. I cannot tell you how badly I scrutinized everything I did within that relationship when my ex left. It got 10 times worse when he moved into a new relationship because I had then a comparison. And I was like, oh my God, at the end of 2022 and pretty much the whole of 2023, I went through a huge personal battle with myself, having to convince myself that I was not the problem after feeling so much rejection, and then comparing myself to a new girl was possibly one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to do. To be able to fall in love with myself again, which is what everybody tells you to do, to focus on yourself whilst you are going through this internal war with yourself, when you only have yourself to look after yourself, and the one person that you are going to war with is yourself. I think it's obviously part of it, probably a deeper episode, and probably something that I will cover on my Patreon, but the mental battle that you go through, the hurt and the pain that sort of rejection brings into your life is something that I don't think, unless you've been through it, you can actually describe. It is so hard to invest in yourself when you feel like you were never enough. And it doesn't matter how many times, it didn't matter how many times my ex said to me, you are not the problem, it's me. And you are perfect, and you are going to find somebody that is going to love you, and actually somebody that deserves you. I do not deserve you. It did not matter to me that he was saying that. It fell on deaf ears because I was just thinking, no, there's something wrong with me. If you've split up with me and managed to find somebody else, I must be the problem. And yet I wasn't. And obviously going through therapy, I've learnt this. Going through my own healing journey just by myself and talking it out with different people, I've realised that it wasn't me. But at the time, my God, does it feel like it is you. And when someone says focus on yourself and you're thinking, I don't want to focus on myself because I actually don't like me at the moment and I don't really know how to deal with that, it's a really tough place to be in. I think as well, like, you miss the emotional safety that they brought into your life. You have to learn how to make yourself feel safe. You have to make yourself have a safe environment. And I talk about this, I can't remember on what episode I talk about this, whether it's on my main account or my Spotify, but my house felt so unsafe, my old house, because I was living under a roof with somebody that was going through something that I had no idea that they were going through. And yes, that is to do with the person and nothing really to do with the house, but you associate your environments with the things that you are going through. And I spent a long time living in that house feeling completely unsafe. That is where I found out the most things. That is when I went through one of the most horrible, darkest times ever. That is where I used to sit and cry myself to sleep. And I hated being there, but I knew that I didn't really have a choice because it was either live there or go back and move in with my parents. I did not have a choice in the matter. And so I stayed there, and I made sure that my spare bedroom became my safe space. I made that room feel so much like mine, and the place where I could go, shut the door, shut the whole rest of the house out of, because obviously everything in that house reminded me of him as well. Like, considering we pretty much built the entire house together, everything I touched was a decision made with him. And the emotional safety that I lost when he left was then heightened a little bit more by being in the house that felt really unsafe. And I learned a lot through therapy about this. I hadn't realized how much being in an environment where you think that your house was your safest space, like now my house, this house is my safe space. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I just want to get home and get into my house. But I didn't have that feeling in my old house, and everybody thought that I was going to really miss that house, but I don't at all. I had no emotional connection to that house whatsoever. And now when I walk past, sometimes I get like a little bit like, oh, the amount of time and effort me and my dad and my ex put into that. It's a shame that it never really fulfilled its purpose within our life. I get emotional about that, but then I remember that a young family lives in there now, so it is, you know, fulfilling its purpose somehow. But when someone says to you, focus on yourself, and you're like, I don't really know how to do that because I'm currently living in an environment where I actually don't know whether I'm going to wake up and be told something else that's going to make me feel so awful for the rest of the day. And I can't describe how, when I moved into this house, when somebody told me something about my ex, I felt like it had less of an effect because I felt safer in this house. Nothing I then went and did reminded me of my ex. And I've got an episode on my Patreon that is quite funny, that I say like the only last remaining item that kind of has anything to do with my ex is my sofa. That is my only kind of remaining item in this house. Everything else in this house is brand new. Nothing has any emotional attachment to my ex. And there were so many times that I went through so many arguments with my ex, and I would then put the phone down and I would be sleeping in a bed that we once shared. In this house, I would be going into a bed that he's never even stepped foot in this house. I would process the argument, or I'd process the information a lot better in a healthier way in this house than I did in my old house. But when someone's telling you like, don't let it upset you, focus on yourself, and you're thinking, I'm having to go now and tuck myself into a bed that I once shared with somebody I thought I was going to be with forever. Really, really difficult. Another thing you could be going through whilst hearing focus on yourself is that you are focusing more on getting answers than you are on your healing. You are completely obsessed with getting answers and chasing closure, and your brain is processing the why rather than the letting go part, because you have no closure. And I think it is one of the hardest things, like actually letting go of the why. A lot of the things that I went through, I never got answers to. A lot of the situations that I brought to my ex, I was never given an explanation to. I was just kind of told, well, we're single now, so I don't really owe you anything. It was really hard. And I think the lack of closure makes you more drawn and a little bit more addicted to checking in and checking on them and trying to find your own closure. And so when people are saying, just focus on yourself, and you're thinking in the back of your mind, well, I know exactly what he's doing because I've been able to look on his social media, or I've been able to look on her social media. I know what they're doing. I know what they're up to. Or you're told certain information and you know they're going away for the weekend. How are you supposed to focus on yourself when you're not over your breakup? You're just processing something and you're being told that your ex is away with somebody else. It just doesn't happen. It's not that easy. And sometimes if you get really out of control of those thoughts, you probably will find yourself rereading old conversations. I don't know why people do this. And I'm not saying like people, I don't know why I did this. I did this a lot. I have my chat saved because I talk about this on my Patreon. I do not believe in deleting chats, especially when you have gone through something that has caused your brain to blank stuff out. If you have trauma and your brain has responded to trauma, you will know as well, if you listen to my Patreon episodes, I suffered with memory loss and it came back. And I think it's when you have gone through like situations of being gaslit and stuff like that, it did come back. But my therapist used to tell me stuff and she'd say, do you remember when this happened? And I was like, how do you know that? And she'd say, well, you told me. And I'd say, oh, I've only just remembered that. And yet I told her clear as day when it happened. It was so weird, and it was a very, very strange time to live in. I do not believe in deleting chats. It's probably another controversial piece of advice. I just don't. They are the most self-soothing things that I have, because I was one of those people that I would have a conversation. I don't know whether it was the lawyer in me, but I would then rewrite out that entire conversation and send it to my ex and be like, I can't believe you said this, 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 and this. I can't believe that this, and this happened. Or I've just been told this, this, and this. And I have replies. And so when I think, did that really happen? I can go back if I do. I obviously don't do this anymore. But when I was going through my breakup, I can say, like, actually, to be fair, I did pull up my chat, I think it was around Christmas when someone said something to me and I went, that's not true. And I actually had evidence of something. So they do help. But, you know, when you're going through a breakup and people are saying focus on yourself, and you know that last night you typed love you into your WhatsApp conversation and you can see how many times they told you that they were in love with you. Why do we do that? I don't know. I liked hurting my own feelings, but it's horrible because you then don't focus on yourself. You're too focused on them. Working on yourself doesn't immediately replace the presence you lost when they left. So when people say, oh my God, you should just focus on yourself and fill up your time. You can fill up your time, let me tell you, as much as you like. I remember the first holiday that I went on without him. I went on a girls' trip to Ibiza. That's when I fell in love with the island. And I can honestly say we slept for 6 hours in 3 days because we were back to back partying, and I still had time to think about him. You will fill up your time so much that you will think, oh my God, I'm not going to have time. I'm not going to have time to think about them. You will. I hate to say this, but you will. Loneliness is louder than self-growth, because self-growth doesn't feel like it's happening. Loneliness, oh my God, you sat in your house on your own, it feels lonely. It is louder than that growth that you are going through. What you are actually going through is growing through being by yourself. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like you are the loneliest person ever. And I'm going to do an episode on this because I get quite a lot of messages like, Lou, how on earth did you get through your ex looking like he was fine and you being in like the trenches of hell? I will do an episode on this because I did struggle with that, but you will compare your healing to them moving on. When they look fine, your pain is heightened, your pain is more confusing, it feels more unfair, you don't understand what you're being put through, and it's really, really hard. It is really, really hard, and I think it's one of the hardest things I think I had to hear was his business partner tell me, oh yeah, no, he seems fine. And I was like, literally hadn't slept, eaten, or stopped crying for about a month. And I was being told, yeah, no, he actually seems all right. I was like, can't breathe. It was so hard. So focusing on yourself, but like I said, people have word vomit and will feed you information, and you'll find out stuff like that then how are you supposed to focus on yourself? Because you're then catapulted right back to, this is not fair. I shouldn't be suffering. I did not want this. And then all of a sudden you're not focusing on yourself. You're focusing on, why are they okay? How are they fine? And again, you go to war with yourself, not realizing that actually they're the problem. They should be the ones sat at home, which they're not, but they should be the ones sat at home like, why am I finding this so easy? Why don't I feel this deep? Why is this not hurting me? I would much rather be sat there thinking, oh my God, this hurts so much and I don't know how this is ever going to stop, than feeling like, oh my God, why does this not hurt? Why does it not hurt that I've spent half my life with somebody and I'm just really easy, can just walk away? Why does that not hurt? When you start healing, you start flipping these situations on their head. But currently, if someone is telling you to focus on yourself and you're thinking, can't focus on myself because my ex is fine and I'm not, So then am I just pretending that I'm fine? And that is a whole different thing that you do not want to be getting into. And coupled with the you should just focus on yourself is always the advice that, like, you need to let go. I will never forget somebody quite close to me saying, you need to let go now. And I was like, do I? They were like, yeah, you need to let go. And I was like, I don't think I need to do anything that you're telling me to do, but, you know, whatever, thanks for the advice, but please don't give me advice. Letting go feels permanent. Letting go is a horrible term in a breakup anyway, because you do not need to let anything go before you are ready, but it feels permanent. And so when people say, just let go, focus on yourself, that is just flippant, because letting go is so friggin' hard, because not only do you not want to let go, all of a sudden your reality becomes reality. The fact that you've gone through a breakup and you're now single feels very loud. And then someone says, oh, you just need to let go now. And you're like, I can't. How? If you could give me a pill so I could, that would be great. Honestly, I always say this, and I know I say it in most of my episodes, but if I could give somebody a pill, if I could make a breakup pill that would make your breakup seem less overwhelmingly emotional, but you still learn the lessons, because I've learned some invaluable lessons going through my breakup, then I would really invest in it. I'd probably sell my house and invest in it. And I think with this, like I said, when people say let go, they don't understand that your emotions do not follow logic. So when people say you need to focus on yourself, you know you need to focus on yourself. Your head knows it needs to focus on itself. You know that. You don't need to hear it continuously through everybody that you meet. Oh, you just need to focus on yourself and you'll feel so much better. You know that. Your heart will resist it. Your heart will 100% overtake and it will resist it. How are you supposed to focus on yourself when your emotions don't follow logic? That's logical. Focusing on yourself is the logical part. The heart, that's where it's hurting. That's where the pain is lying currently. So focusing on yourself is going to be friggin' hard, because your brain is following logic and your heart is following something else. And it's really tough because, one, in that feel like your effort has been wasted, that all the effort that you put into that relationship is wasted. And I talk about how I was able to come to terms with the fact that it actually wasn't wasted. It was actually a huge green flag. A huge green flag. If you can turn around to somebody new and say, I held a relationship down for 14 years of my life. I went through every single milestone besides turning 30. He turned 30, I didn't. Besides turning 30, every single milestone that you typically hear people split up over, you know, going through like childhood sweethearts, we made it through. I cannot tell you how much of a green flag that is for you when you meet somebody new. And the right person finds it attractive, because I think when people say they haven't been in a relationship, I think that's a red flag, because I'm like, why haven't you? At the age of whatever, why haven't you been in a relationship? And that is how I flipped that round on its head. Like, the effort that I went through to make that relationship work was not wasted, because it's a huge green flag for me now when I meet people and they say like, oh, how come you're single? And I'm like, oh, I've just spent some time single after being in a 14-year relationship. And people go like, whoa. Some people go like, oh my God, you still must be in love with them. But some people go like, oh my God, that's like a massive achievement. And the more I heard that, the more I was like, oh yeah, this is actually a huge achievement. When you initially go through a breakup, you feel like that energy has been wasted, and it's hard to redirect your energy into yourself when you're trying to think like, oh my God, I literally wasted so much time on them. I literally wasted so much energy on them. And now I'm trying to redirect that energy to make into me. How do you do that? It's really hard. And I'll tell you how. You don't. It's really hard. It's really hard to redirect the energy when you're already thinking about the fact that you put your heart and soul into a relationship that somebody just literally went, do you know what? I'm out. See you later. And again, people will say, oh, you just need to focus on yourself. And you go, okay, but what happens if I don't want to do that? Because the entire future I had planned has now kind of just gone up in smoke and gone up in air. And I don't really know what to do with that. Your entire future. And I have shot so many people down. So many people down. Because we were together from such a young age. And I think people used to think of us as being a young couple. But we planned our entire future. Entire future. So much so, we used to talk about building a granny annex on our land for our parents to live in. Well, my parents, but I used to say I want my parents to live with me in a granny annex. We had countless conversations about what we were going to call our dogs, how we were going to dress our kids, where we would holiday with them. And people are like, do you know what? Focus on yourself. And you're like, I've actually planned my entire next 50 years out with somebody. And now I don't know how that 50 years looks. Which, by the way, is the most terrifying thing. But it does get easier. But how? How am I supposed to focus on myself when I've just seen not only the previous 14 years of my life go up in flames, but also the next 50 years? And I used to say to people, if you tell me how I'm supposed to just get over that by focusing on myself, then I will fully listen. But I don't think anything that anybody could have said makes that easier. It doesn't. Losing your entire future with somebody is heartbreaking. Really heartbreaking. So if you're finding the just focus on yourself advice really difficult to digest, totally normal, because I completely understand what you're thinking right now. And I think one of the hardest things as well when people say focus on yourself is that they don't realize how connected you actually are to somebody. Your mind hasn't really caught up with reality yet. And I used to wake up so many times, so many times thinking that he was in bed next to me. And I would relive my breakup in that morning because I'd be like, oh yeah, he's not here anymore. And then you go out that weekend as people are saying, just focus on yourself, or you pick up a book and it's telling you to focus on yourself and you're like, can't focus on myself because this morning I woke up and I thought it was all a dream. I thought it was all a nightmare, and I genuinely thought he was in the house. The amount of sleep paralysis and the demons, aka him being the sleep paralysis demon, in my house was horrible. I used to actually wake up and be able to hear him in the house when he wasn't actually there. And you go through all of that and then you're met with this advice of focus on yourself. And so they were the 20 reasons why. There was 20, I just didn't number them. They were the 20 reasons why you are finding focusing on yourself so hard. Focusing on yourself is a piece of advice that you need to take 100%. However, if you are finding that piece of advice overwhelming, daunting, something that you can't do currently right now, there is nothing wrong with you. The focus on yourself piece of advice comes from people that have no idea how to actually advise you. The first thing I say to people when people say that they're going through a hard time with their relationship or they've gone through a breakup is, okay, how do you feel? How do you actually feel right now in this moment? How is it making you feel? And when people used to say that to me, I'd be taken back because I'd be like, well, I don't want to sit here and say, oh my God, I'm really struggling. Like I've cried myself to sleep for the past 2 weeks. But actually, when people say, do you know what? This is actually making me feel like this. You give out the less emotionless advice. And so if you are struggling at the moment and you're going through a breakup and you're thinking, oh my God, I'm listening to Lou's podcasts and I'm thinking, I can't focus on myself because I'm doing all these other things. And like I said, Yes, you do need to be focusing on yourself. Yes, you do need to be putting yourself first. Yes, you do need to be eating meals. Yes, you do need to be moving your body, trying to get up and generate some momentum and get some motivation from somewhere. Yes, you do need to be doing all of that. But if all of those 20 things are still going on in your brain, you need to be breaking down these things little by little and working through them. And so when someone says, well, you just need to focus on yourself, you can say, I'm actually really struggling with detaching myself from my routine that I had with him at the moment. So focusing on myself is actually really difficult. So be armed. I always say this as well on my Patreon. Be armed with your responses to people, because that advice feels heavy and you shut the door and it will weigh on you and you'll think, why can I not focus on myself? It's actually empty advice. It is an empty advice that you don't need to be worrying about when you are in the pits of burning hell of your breakup. I hope that episode has helped. It's been a long episode. I think I've recorded for like 80 minutes. So yeah, good meaty episode to get your teeth into. Like I've said throughout this entire episode, I have so many more episodes on my Patreon. If you want to join us over there, it is £5 a month. Sign yourself up by following the links in my bio. You get two additional episodes a week. They are more in depth, more emotional. Some of them range from like 10 minutes where you will get like me just talking to you in your ear. If you need it to, get to work in the morning and you're feeling a certain way, there will be an episode that you can put on in the car whilst you're driving to work. If you want more of an in-depth episode on, I don't know, like I said, like taking off your engagement ring or going through your finances or dealing with an ex that's coming back in and out of your life, things like that, head on over to my Patreon. It is all over there. If not, guys, I will see you back here next week for another episode. Look after yourself. Bye.